Coming up on episode 162 of Creative Writing, I'm talking about what to do when you get bad reviews.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hello and welcome to Creative Writing. This is the podcast for you, a writer, blogger, or creative who wants to build an online platform without being smarmy. And I'm your host, Kirsten Oliphant. I'm coming to you on another stormy night with asthma still, so we'll see how I do here. But I'm really excited in a weird way to talk to you about bad reviews. Is that weird to be sharing about excitement about bad reviews? Well, we're going to anyway. I'm excited. Don't take my excitement away about bad reviews. We're going to talk about them, and I'm going to be excited throughout. This is something I've been thinking about a lot. I see a ton of posts in Facebook groups, my own and mostly other groups, and I feel like this is something I just want to address and get out there. So we're going to do that in this episode. If you want to find the show notes, you can go to creativewriting.com/162 for episode 162. And if you want to get my weekly emails, so you have a reminder of when the podcast is live, and also get tips, resources, tools, and tricks to, learn how to do things better and figure out what's going on with social media and all of that kind of stuff, you can go to creativewriting.com/quick fix to get all of that. All right, let's get into bad reviews. And actually, as I was kind of doing that intro, I was trying to pull up some of my books so I could find a bad review of mine. So, okay, I'm going to do that. We're going to read some reviews. I'm going to read some bad reviews that I have. Wait, what is that? Okay, wrong thing. Clicked on something wrong. Okay, so bad reviews. First of all, just let's get this out of the way. This is something that happens to everybody. So if you write a book or create something, this happens on podcasts too. I hear people talking about it with podcasts. Anywhere people can leave reviews, you're going to get a bad review. It's just reality. And I pulled some up from Jane Eyre, which is a classic book. And I pulled up 1-star reviews because there are some. In fact, let me see if I can pull up how many there were. It was only 2%, but out of thousands of reviews, that ends up being quite a few. Okay, so I'm going to read a couple. There are a few that were one word. 1-star review was meh. That's all they said. Another, very boring. And then let's see, this was one of my favorite ones. Okay, here's a 1-star review for Jane Eyre. I hate this novel with a passion. Jane Eyre is insipid and unlikable. The dialogue feels contrived, and Bronte writes with such verbosity that it makes it hard to enjoy the story. This book had some of the worst purple prose I have come across in a long time. I love beautiful writing, but this book was way too descriptive. Bronte would often dedicate not one, which is often too many in my opinion, but many paragraphs to describe setting. Sometimes I just screamed, "Get on with it, Bronte!" in all caps, just so you know. And keep in mind that this was just in the first 100 pages. I eventually gave up and read the chapter summaries on Spark Notes. This is the type of novel where you think you should like it because it's a quote-unquote classic, but in reality, you do not enjoy it at all, unless you are required to read it or are dying for an 1800s love story. Save yourself the misery and read something else. Another one below that, just the title, one of the worst stories of all time. I don't understand this 1-star review. Already read it. Put it in my ebook list, then deleted it. I already read it. Why is that a 1-star review? So just first of all, some of the 1-star reviews are ridiculous. I don't even understand that. Why is that a 1-star review? Because you already read it. That's your problem. That is not the book's problem. Okay, so just there you go. I could keep on reading. There's a bunch more. But that's Jane Eyre. It's a classic. It has 1-star reviews. Therefore, I'm going to infer that you are going to have 1-star reviews. Welcome to authordom and also just life. You aren't going to be everybody's cup of tea. And also sometimes people are jerks. We're living in an age of internet trolls. So that's a thing. However, 1-star and 2-star and just critical reviews, that doesn't mean that the person is a troll. In fact, I'm in an author group just for one specific author. And whenever that person gets low reviews, they go into their group and are like, y'all, I have these low reviews. Please go write high reviews. It's just trolls. And I went and read some of the low reviews, and actually they were very accurate for that author's work. And I thought, that's not a troll. That's someone who actually read your book, and they're right on. Your book has problems. So there are the people who are going to say things like, I already read it, 1-star review, or meh, and it's not going to be helpful, but you're also going to get some like actual, maybe helpful 1-star or 2-star reviews. So we're going to get into all that. What do you do when you get these reviews? Because here's the thing. Yes, you're going to get them, but it doesn't necessarily make you feel better. Like, okay, maybe you feel a little bit better that you and Charlotte Bronte are in the same boat. Hey, we're in the same boat, Charlotte Bronte. But it also really hurts because you put so much into your work. It stinks to get these low reviews. So here's what we're going to do about that. There are basically a few main options, 2 main options. Let's break it down to 2. And I see basically this first one being promoted most often in Facebook groups. The first option is don't read your reviews at all. And then the second option, which is the one I'm going to kind of push at you just a little bit, nudge you at a little strongly, is to read them and see if there's anything valid in them that could help you be a better writer. Okay, so the first one, which is the one I hear people saying all the time, is just don't read reviews at all. And I want to talk about that because that is a valid point, because sometimes as artists, as creatives, just as people, it is so hard to take criticism. We don't take it well, and reviews can be very critical. So when you're reading your reviews, even sometimes good reviews, I've had 4-star reviews that bother me because they'll say something and I'm like, oh, I don't like the way they say that, or is that what my book said? Or, oh, they liked it, but they didn't like this part about it. It's very easy to get offended by this because we're very emotionally involved. So you might want to avoid reading reviews if you're not able to control yourself. Like if you are pushed over an edge by these reviews and get into a dark place where you can't write, you can't create, you get so down on yourself that you can't move forward, then maybe you shouldn't read reviews. Like that's a valid thing. Or maybe you shouldn't read them right now. Maybe you shouldn't read them when you're having a bad day. Maybe you need to find the right time to read them, or maybe you do need to avoid them altogether. So only you can tell yourself if like it's a very unhealthy thing for you to read reviews, and it might be. So that's when I feel like you should discount them and not read them and take a step back, is when they are inhibiting you, when they are keeping you from creating because they are putting you in a dark place. That's when you need to step away. And that's okay. I really do think that. So to the people in the Facebook groups and everywhere who are saying don't read reviews, you might be right if they're really hard for you. However, I'm going to give you guys a nudge to read reviews, especially the 1- and 2-star reviews, because there might be something in there that makes you a better writer. So I think it can be very helpful to read these. As I mentioned, there's an author, I'm in her Facebook group, and whenever she gets a low review, she posts in there about it, and I went and read them, and they're incredibly accurate for the writing. They're actually, if I remember thinking, I was reading one, I was like, if she read this and like didn't just write it off as a troll, her writing would get better if she could take in some of this criticism. So sometimes they really do contain something good. And I've gone and looked at reviews of books that I was thinking about reading and then still read them after reading the 1- and 2-star reviews. So sometimes they can actually be very helpful for people, your readers. But you might learn something about either your writing or also readers in general and the reader expectations, because I've talked about this before as I'm talking about book sales, but reader expectations are everything. And I will share where I kind of missed the boat with some things and learned from my 1- and 2-star reviews that I missed the reader expectations, and that's important. Okay, so when you have these low reviews, how can you respond to them in a way that is helpful for you? The first thing you want to do is you're going to read through them. Duh. Okay, so you're going to read through them with an open mind. That's a little bit harder. And trying as much as you can to keep emotion out of it. For me, what I'll do is I'll read through them, and then I have to sort of sit and stew about it for a little while and like get all whiny and pouty and upset about that review. And then I just need like a little bit of time to do that. So if you need to do that, which I do, indulge yourself. Give yourself an hour or a day to just be whiny about that review. Then move on and come back to the review, get rid of the whiny, come back to the review and actually read it. See if there is some validity in the things that they say. Let those things sink in, not in an emotional way. Detach yourself as much as you can and think about it. And here's some questions that you can ask, looking at either, if you just have one or if you have a couple. Is there anything constructive in the review? Okay, like the ones I read from Jane Eyre, meh is not helpful. The review that was very scathing, that was like there were too many paragraphs about setting, that might be something to consider if that was a review on your book. And then the next thing, does anything ring true to you? Does it ring true to you when you hear that there's too much setting in your book? Are you thinking, no, there isn't? And that's going to be our first response. We have like a knee-jerk defensive mechanism. Turn that off if you can. Take some work to do that. Think about it. Do I have too much about setting? And then this is really important. Are there repeated themes, words, or critiques in the bad reviews? So if you have 6 bad reviews and they all say too much setting, that might be something to consider, unless you have like 95 other reviews that say they love the setting. Those people then, the 6 that are leaving the review about that, may just not be your ideal reader. That's okay, but you should think about that. Is there too much setting? And are they all saying the same thing? Because if all of your low reviews are saying the same thing, there might be some validity to it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to change who you are or change your book or change your writing. Because again, you might have 90 reviews where they like exactly the same thing. Not everybody's your ideal reader. So if you can look at those reviews and think, okay, is this person my ideal reader based on what they're saying? If so, then you should take, and you may not be able to tell, but if so, you should take that review and their criticism a little bit more seriously, give it a little bit more weight. Because if that's your ideal reader, you want them happy. Now, if it's not your ideal reader, then you can just say, okay, and listen to it, but it may not be a review that you care that much about. Can you identify an expectation that readers had that you didn't fulfill? And here's where I'm going to give an example. So when I first started writing under Emma St. Clair, I did not do research right away. And that is like the biggest mistake that I made when I started with the pen name, was not reading enough of the genre. If you are going to write in a genre, you've just got to go read a ton in there. Not if you're doing indie stuff, don't read traditional stuff. You can, but that's not going to help you. You need to read indie authors who are doing well in your specific genre. Super important. So I didn't do that. And my plan was this. I wrote a Christmas short. It was kind of like between a short story and a novella. And then I was going to write a New Year's that was a continuation. It was a love triangle. And then it was going to end and culminate in a book that solved the love triangle that was going to come out the following year. So I did that. I wrote 4 days of Christmas, 3 nights at New Year's, and then I had Cold Feet, Hot Summer, which was the full-length book that kind of resolved the story that I started in those 2 shorts. So the first thing is that in the Christmas, 4 days of Christmas, I had a lot of good reviews, but then I had some low reviews that I'll come back to that because that's not sort of the reader expectation. But I read those and actually learned some things from them. But the second one, 3 nights at New Year's, basically, because this was a love triangle, in the first short, she gets together with one guy. In the second one, at New Year's, her ex comes back and she gets back together with him. And then in the main book, I don't want to do too many spoiler alerts, but she has to choose finally between the 2 guys. So New Year's comes around and I really didn't understand tropes very well. So I sort of thought love triangle was like the main trope, and actually found out now a lot of readers hate that in romance. And I kind of do too. But anyway, at the end of the book, or the end of the short, she gets together with a different guy. So first one, she gets together with a new guy, then she goes back to her ex. And when I published it, I got a 4-star review. So it wasn't even a 1-star review, but the review was something like, I could not sleep because I was so upset that she ended up with the wrong guy. And it just kind of went on and on and on. And I was like, man. So here's the thing that I learned very quickly, and I unpublished that. It's now kind of a bonus. Like if you want to read the bridge between the short story and the novel, you can, but it's not for sale. Because what I realized that I didn't know that should have been super obvious to me was that the reader expectations of romance are a happy ever after. You can't really do a series and a straight romance about one couple or one heroine that keeps getting together and breaking up and getting together and breaking up. If that's going on, then your main genre, according to the romance writers of America and the definitions of romance, that's not a romance. If it's going on through multiple books, you might have, it might be something else with romantic themes, women's fiction with romantic themes. There is something called romantic tragedy, but overall, you need to provide a happy ever after. And I didn't know that. And so I learned from that review that the reader expectation was something different than what I provided. And that's important to know. Now, you should hopefully know that beforehand, but that's not always how life works. In fact, I was in a Facebook group and somebody was posting about a 1-star review, and it was in actually, I don't know if it was a romance or not, but the main guy character during the breakup got together with another girl. And then when they came back together, and then he got back together, I guess, with the main person. And a ton of people started leaving really low reviews on that. And I'd actually seen a poll in a readers group like the week before where an author was like, I might have that happen, that same situation where there's a breakup and then the guy meets somebody else and then they get back together. And the response was so overwhelming that people hate that. Readers hate that. And that's a really good lesson to learn that, that person unfortunately learned through the 1-star reviews that were coming in and slamming her, but realize that the reader expectation and sort of what the reader wants, that's not it. And so those 1-star reviews or low reviews, or even in my case, it was still a 4-star review because they liked the book. They were just really unhappy about the ending. You might learn about the reader expectations. And so if you can take something away about yourself or the reader expectations, that can be really helpful. And is there any room for you to grow as a writer from the reviews? Is there anything you can get better at? Is there something you can tighten up? Maybe there's paragraphs of settings, Charlotte Bronte, or maybe not, because that's how you write. But are there things you can take away and strengthen about yourself from the reviews? And again, you may not find anything helpful, but those are great questions to ask. Is there anything constructive? Does anything ring true? Are there repeated themes, words, critique in the reviews? Is the person an ideal reader? Can you identify the expectations from readers that you didn't fulfill? Is there room for you to grow as a writer from those reviews? So if all those reviews are saying the same thing, take some time to think about the validity of what they're saying. And I've actually, and this goes back to the 4 Days of Christmas, the first of those shorts, I actually went back and updated it because when I was reading through, I had 2 lower reviews and I read through them and I agreed with them. I let the reviews sink in. First, they really bothered me. They really bothered me for a long time. And then I was like, no, they're right. They're absolutely right. And I actually went and updated the file. And then I'll come back. I'm going to come back to this. Leave you the cliffhanger here about what I did next after I updated the file. But I actually changed what I wrote. Now, that doesn't mean that every time you get a low review, you should go change your book. However, if there's validity to it, if it rings true to you as the author, if you feel like it would help your book sales to change, update, edit your book, then do it. We shouldn't be so hung up on things. We shouldn't be so hung up on our work that we aren't open to change. And I feel kind of strongly about that. Now, if you are producing your work and it's a piece of art to you and you just don't care about sales, you just don't really care about readers, you wish they'd like it, but it's just, this is how the story's going to be, then just own that and don't worry about the reviews at all then. But if you are trying to actually really build a loyal following, if you're trying to make money with your work, then I think it's a valid thing to take into consideration some of those critiques from your readers. I don't think that's a bad thing. It doesn't make you weak. I think it makes you strong to be able to look at those things and see if there's truth to them. So there's my passionate feeling. I'm getting a little ranty here. Now, here's what I want you never to do. And you guys know that if you've listened for a while, I like to say, do what works for you. I almost never say never, and I'm going to say it now. I just said it a bunch. But here are things that you should never do with your 1-star or low reviews. Again, I don't usually say never, but I'm saying it now and I really do mean it. Do not engage with your 1-star reviews. Do not engage. This is not a drill. Back away from your computer if you are tempted to hit reply. And I will tell you, I've left a low review on a book before and had the author write back, and it made me feel very icky. It was not something that made me like the author more. It made me like them less. I didn't understand the point of the response. I didn't think it was necessary or good. It is not something that will endear your readers to you. You can take the criticisms and then you need to walk away. Do not engage. And then this is a second thing that's so important. Do not try to get your followers to engage with those low reviews. I've seen authors do this before and it makes me crazy when they have something bad happen and they try to drum up all the support from their followers to go do that whole mob thing online. And you know what? We just have enough mob mentality stuff going on online that you should not be doing that in any situation, whether it's reviews or something else. I really don't like this mob mentality. I think it can be very dangerous. It's not helpful to anyone. It's very easy to stir up a mob online, and it can be really harmful to people. So no, do not get your followers to engage with bad reviews. Now, I said I was going to give you a cliffhanger with my Christmas short, and I will tell you this. So when I changed the file, I had to decide whether I was going to republish it and lose the reviews. Not republish, take it down and then publish it as a completely new file or email Amazon. Usually if you email them, they're not going to do it. So I would have had to kind of create it as a new book, rename it or do something different and lose all those reviews. Or I could keep the reviews even though they were no longer accurate because I actually updated something. So what I did is I emailed just my launch team, which is a smaller group. And I said, hey, here's what I did. I read this review. This person was right. These 2 reviews were completely right. Now I've updated the book. But the problem was Amazon was showing one of those 1-star reviews as the very top review. And a bunch of people had found it helpful. So they clicked helpful, which makes it rise to the top. And that review was no longer applicable because I actually changed things. Now, I did not want to engage, but I asked my readers and I was very clear that I wanted it to be something that was said respectfully and gently and basically just like, hey, would anyone mind going up there, commenting on that and saying, hey, I think the author has changed this based on your review. And so I asked that and one person did it. And the other thing I asked them was, so Amazon considers anything 3-star, 2-star, 1-star to be critical reviews. And so what it was showing was the very top critical review, which is a 1-star. So I asked people to go click helpful on a 3-star review. And let me see if that actually if that worked. Yes. Okay. So my 1-star reviews are no longer at the top, and I'll read you, let's see. Okay, here's comments. Yeah, so people commented on there. And here was what they said. A woman is sexualized and it's shrugged off because it isn't porn. And there's more to it. My book was very light-hearted. It was humorous, Christmas. And part of it revolved around the girl having to wear a skimpier outfit at her job as working with the mall Santa as an elf for the photo center. And again, like the point was for it to be light but I'm not into over sexualizing things. And I think that the points were valid. So I changed it. And actually, no. Oh, I did respond. I forgot that I did respond. And here's what I said. I really appreciate this review so much so that I updated the book. I don't think the old versions will populate in the new version, but the new version handles this very differently. Thanks so much for helping me to make my writing better. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I said never. I just told you guys never. I forgot that I did that. And here I got one of my followers said the things mentioned in this review have been changed and no longer apply to the story. So I think you don't want to respond. This was a different situation because I'd actually changed what was there. I wasn't defending myself, but I was actually going through and saying, I respect what you said, and I changed it. So that is the only place where there might be some, room for you to do something like that. But generally speaking, you don't want to engage. You don't want to get your people doing that mob mentality thing. So don't do that. Parting thoughts as we finish up. I feel like I got a little bit ranty on this one, and I hope that's okay with you guys. I hope this is a different perspective. I don't hear people saying this a lot. I mostly just hear people saying, if it makes you feel bad, stop reading your reviews. And again, if you're going to a dark place, step away. But I think there's so much to be learned from those reviews. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. So it's good to look at them with a critical eye, and maybe you can ask someone else. Like if you're struggling, maybe ask somebody else who could be impartial. Like, do you feel like that was true about the book that you read of mine? We're all going to have bad reviews. You can ignore them, or you can see if there's something to be learned and grow. I'm a person who wants to be learning. I want to be growing. I want to be the best author that I can be. I want to sell more books. So I want to hit those reader expectations, and my low reviews might tell me if I'm not hitting those reader expectations, or they could be flukes. They could be meh, which is not going to help me at all know anything about my books. But if there's something there that can help you be a better writer or meet those reader expectations better. But don't be a jerk and be defensive, and don't call your mob out on those people. So that's what I want to leave you guys with. You're going to have a bad review. Choose how you want to respond. Ignore them or learn from them if there's something to learn. I would love to hear from you guys about how you handle reviews, and we're going to talk about this in the Facebook group. So if you're not in the Facebook group, go to creativewriting.com/community, and that will take you right over to the Facebook group, and we're going to be having a conversation about this in there, what you do with those negative reviews. It's okay if they crush your spirit. Sometimes they crush mine, especially for over on Goodreads, where people are a lot more critical. Oh my goodness. I didn't even open Goodreads to look at the low reviews there, but that's just how Goodreads is. It's a little bit harsher, different kind of culture than the Amazon reviews. So I'd love to know what you do. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you want to find the show notes, you can go to creativewriting.com/162. And again, if you want to sign up for my weekly email with resources, tips, tools, and more, you can go to creativewriting.com/quick fix. I'm so glad that you are here. I'm so glad that you're listening. And I really hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope every week I'm bringing something that is encouraging you, making you laugh, or making you better at the things that you do. That's my hope. A big thank you to Jasmine Commerce of JasmineCommerceMusic.com for the music that you hear playing right now in the show. Thank you guys for listening. Now it's time for you to go out, create content that you love, and serve your people well.